speak in several different places in the Torah. And we're going to tie all of this together before we're finished. This word here in Jeremiah 31:31, Father tells Israel to make themselves signs and tall columns, pillars, erect those pillars to mark their way home. The word for columns or high heaps in that particular verse is Strong's number 8564, and it would be rendered tamurim. Say that with me, tamurim. Not tambourine, tamurim. The root of it is Strong's number 8558, Tamar. And when you see Tamar, it should remind you of Judah's daughter-in-law, Tamar. Okay? The meaning of the word Tamar literally is that of something standing erect or straight like a pole or a palm tree. Basically, Tamar's name meant palm tree. And of course, she was the daughter-in-law of Judah. Her husband was two of the sons of Judah. Both of those died because they rebelled against the word of Yah. And we could go into grave detail, but we don't have time tonight. But suffice it to say, he promised the third son to her so that she could have seed. Listen to me. This is important because this is a prophetic word for you and I. The word Tamar or Tamur has the tav in front of it. And if you look at the tav as a prefix, it means I will. And again, you have the word Emor right in the center, the root. And basically, when you see the word Tamar, it's inferring that I will speak. He's going to speak to you from this story of Judah and Tamar. They produced two sons. You remember the names of the sons? Perez and Zerah. Perez, Strong's number 6557, written in Hebrew as paretz, it means a gap or a break. It can infer a rupture, a breach in a wall, the separation of people or people groups. And if you go back and look at the story, what happened, one son began to come out of the womb, twins in the womb, and his arm exits the womb. The mother takes and ties a scarlet thread. The arm is withdrawn back in the womb, and the younger son comes out second. And it's called a breach, a paretz. Now, the word zerah, Strong's number 2226, pronounced zerak, it means to rise up like the sun does, to break out. It's from the root of the word zer. Listen to this. Zer is a masculine noun that connotes a molding or a border, like this chair rail is a molding, or it would be called a zer. But it specifically is used to refer to the molding or the border around the Ark of the Covenant. And so basically what you have in demonstration here, remember we're talking about Yehuda and Tamar. I will speak. From Yehuda, from the offspring of Yehuda, Tamar, I will speak. Where did the line of the tribe of Yehuda come from? It came from this lineage that you see right here in this particular Torah portion. Now, if you will look at the definition of these two names, it's literally telling you that the two people groups of Israel and Judah would be separated because of the breaching of the covenant by Israel, yet there will be one who would speak. And that one who would speak would heal the breach, the Tamar. Isaiah 30, verse 26, and Isaiah 58, verse 12. Can y'all see that? Well, there happens to be another instance that you'll see this word Emor, and it's conspicuous in the Torah, but you'll never see it if you're not one who's willing to indulge himself in searching. It's seen in the story of Hosea and Gomer. How many of you ever read that story? You could say her name this way, G with the Gimel, Emor. Are you with me? So there's something about Hosea, and his name is in Hebrew is literally rendered the same as Joshua. Remember Joshua, Yehoshua? But it also happens to be the same as the Hebrew rendering of Yeshua. Hosea, Strong's number 1954, literally is translated as salvation. And if you go back and look in the first chapter of Hosea, you'll find that Hosea's father's name was Beri. You know, when you see the yod as a suffix on the end of the word, it means my. Well, the word Beit Resh, bear, means well. Are you with me? So Beri, this is powerful. You know how important it is to be careful what you name people, what you call people? Well, his father's name, Beri, means my well. And guess what? Salvation, Hosea, came out of my well. Did y'all get that? Hosea, son of Beri. Hosea came out of Beri, my well. And Isaiah 12, verse 3 says, "For with joy shall you draw waters out of the wells of salvation." Can y'all see? This is not an accident. Now, because the children of Israel had compromised the covenant, Yahweh takes this very individual whose name means salvation, it's a shadow picture of the Messiah, and he tells him to go take a wife who's a whore. He's talking about the church. And like it or not, the church has involved themselves in pagan trappings, and we can say we love him if you want to, but if you had these pagan trappings involved in your religious practices, you just had a little fling on the side. Say amen or oh me, it's the truth nonetheless. Are y'all getting this? Y'all are a hard sell tonight. You're making it kind of difficult. Well, let's look at her name. Strong's number 1586, Gomer, is a verb that means to finish, Gomar. It means to finish. It means to make something complete. It infers something that has been suddenly stopped or terminated. And again, you can see the root of the word Gomar is the word Amar. And it means, again, in this word, to speak as well. So the names here infer, listen to me. When Yah told Hosea to take this harlot, her name infers, even though salvation was being drawn out of my well, the Amar was going to be cut off. Even though salvation was being drawn out of his well because of their idolatrous practices, he was cutting off the word. That's why he told him to take Gomer. He's telling him, listen, I set waters of salvation in front of you and freely gave you an opportunity to draw from my wells, and you prostituted yourself to these other gods. By taking Gomer as your wife, it's inferring that I'm cutting you off. And that is still resonating today. Are you hearing me? Even though we know that this was written in that day and age, and we go back and look at Jezreel, Yahweh says, I'll cut off the seed and scatter you. Lo ruhamah and lo ami. Lo ruhamah means one who is not given mercy, and lo ami means not a people. And it came to pass, when Yahweh says, I will cut off the word, even though the well of living waters in front of you, if I cut the word off, you don't have any access to it, and I'll scatter you to the four corners of the earth. This is what this Torah portion is telling you. If you're not careful, he's going to cut off the speaking. And once he cuts off the speaking, you're lo ruhamah. You're not loved. And you'll have no mercy. And you'll be lo ami, no people. But on the other hand, if we'll stay connected to this well, he will cause us to be a peculiar people. And that's what it tells us back over in Peter. He says, you who in time past were not a people, now you have become the chosen of Yah, a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people. He uses the same terminology that was used here in the book of Hosea. Now, Amos 8:11, as we've been talking about all evening, tells us that in the days in front of us, Gomer is going to show up again. Why? Because the speaking's going to be cut off. There's going to be a famine of hearing. He's going to cut it off. The access to the well of salvation is not going to be as easy as it was at one time. That's why we've got to maintain proper relationship. Do y'all understand what I'm sharing? All right. If you look at the word Gomer, and if you add that Holam Vav, you have the word Omer. Again, it means speaking. And you have that Gimel in the front of it. The Gimel hints at something that's being lifted up. It can infer the opportunity to run after the Torah because it looks like the heel of a man who's in pursuit of something. You can either be in pursuit of the Torah, or you can, the word that's being spoken, or you can be in a rebellious condition like Gomer was found to be. Are you following me? There's some other connections. You can see it in the life of Abraham. Remember, we're talking about this season called the counting of the Emor. And you'll notice as we get into looking at this that this Torah portion speaks specifically to the Levitical priesthood regarding prohibitions that would cause them to become unclean. That's what this word's supposed to be. It's a cleansing agent. Look with me in Leviticus chapter 21. Let's go back there. Y'all want me to stop, or can y'all hold on a little while? Maybe y'all need to be agitated a little bit. Leviticus 21, 1b. I want you to look at this word here. And then we're going to look at verse 4. And I'm going to show you why it's important to pay attention to the Emor, to the speaking. If you don't pay attention to the speaking, you're going to do this very thing that's listed right here in 21, 1b and verse 4. It says, there shall none be defiled for the dead among his people. And verse 4 again is emphasized. It says, but he shall not defile himself, being a chief man among his people, to profane himself. And you initially can look at it from a physical demonstration and say, well, it's talking about coming in contact with dead bodies. But it has a spiritual application as well. The word profane in Hebrew is the word halal. It means to defile oneself, and it literally infers to defile oneself sexually. Well, I'd never do that. But if you're given to pagan idolatrous practices, guess what? We've done just that. And if you're one that walks in the flesh, if you're a carnal individual, you've done just that. You've profaned yourself. So you have come in contact with the dead. And if you have, based on what this Torah portion says, you're cut off from the speaking. Are y'all getting this? Did you know this dead body, the dead body of the flesh, will cut you off from hearing? If your flesh is getting in your way, you're not going to be able to hear properly. And if you are, based on what the Torah teaches, if I've come in contact with this dead flesh, and I've got news for you, if you don't bring this flesh under control, we're all guilty of it. That's why you need to apply the washing of the water so that you can be cleansed. That's why the ashes of the red heifer were used, so that every time you come in contact with the dead flesh, you can be sprinkled once again. That's what it's talking about. Well, if you were contaminated by the dead flesh, you were not allowed in the tabernacle. And if you're not allowed in the tabernacle, you couldn't have access to the high priest. And if you couldn't have access to the high priest, you had no mediator between you and the Father. That's why he's telling us, pay attention to the speaking. Well, y'all so excited. The word halal is closely related to the word challah, which is the bread we broke tonight before we had the service in this auditorium. It also is the word used for bride. The word challah can also mean to be pining. How many of you have ever heard, oh, bless her darling heart, she's just pining away, suffering in grief because of her lost loved one? Well, it's inferring here that even though we may have separated ourselves from the thing that had contaminated us, we still pine away for it. Like the children of Israel, when they came out of Egypt, even though they were in the presence of Yah, could hear the voice of Yah speaking, they still longed for some of the things. Happened to be the onions and the leeks and the garlic back over there in Egypt. Hello? Are y'all getting this? Well, if you go back and continue to look at it, it tells you that the priest who profaned himself by touching dead bodies was prevented from having intimacy. And not only does it apply to idols, false fallen gods, but if you go back and look at it, the first instance of this occurring was passed to Adam, who was the first high priest on the earth. And how did Adam contaminate himself? Genesis chapter 3, he came in contact with the dead body of the serpent. And when I say dead body, I'm not talking about a dead serpent. I'm talking about one who had dead seed. That's where death came from. Y'all follow me? Well, you have to ask yourself then, if we're looking at this in this word Omer, if it can be found in the life of Abraham. I want you to look with me in Genesis chapter 14.